welcome to the deep dive. Get ready, because today we're really cracking open a topic that shapes so much habits.
Absolutely. From your morning coffee to your biggest life ambitions, habits are running the show, often behind the scenes.
And this is special because it's built from source material. You, our listeners, provided great stuff from James Clear's Atomic Habits and some related transcripts.
That's right. So our mission today is simple. Dive into these sources, pull out the core insights.
Give you a shortcut, basically. Understanding how these tiny, tiny shifts can lead to, well, pretty remarkable results down the line.
And the author's own story, it really sets the stage, doesn't it? The sources mention this severe injury he had.
Yeah, broken nose, facial fractures, double vision. Sounds awful. Couldn't drive for 8 months, needed physical therapy just for basic movements.
And feeling depressed, overwhelmed, you can only imagine. But navigating that, it seems like that really forged his understanding of slow, steady progress.
Definitely. And then to come out of that and have his writing reach millions, coaches using his work, launching the Habits Academy.
It really shows the power behind these ideas he developed about habits. A transformation is possible.
Okay, so let's get straight to the core idea, Atomic Habits. What does atomic actually mean here? It's not just small, is it?
No, it's more nuanced. The source defines it two ways. First, yes, an extremely small amount, but second, it's the single irreducible unit of a larger system.
Ah, okay, so tiny and fundamental, like a building block.
Exactly. Tiny and foundational. And that leads to the core concept. These little 1% changes, they seem like nothing day to day.
Right, almost invisible.
But they compound over time, dramatically.
The airplane analogy from the source really nails this.
It does. Flying from LA to NYC, just a tiny 3.5-degree shift south at takeoff.
And you land in Washington, D.C., hundreds of miles off course, from a change you can barely even notice at the start.
Precisely. And it shows how a slight, consistent change in your daily habits can steer your whole life towards a completely different destination.
Really drives home the power. And the source's stress, this is a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Habits compound for you, building skills, knowledge, health. It's like compound interest for your life.
But they can also compound against you. Those tiny errors, the little slip-ups, the just this once excuses.
Yeah, repeated day after day, they add up. They can become, well, pretty toxic results if you're not paying attention.
So understanding how habits actually work, it's not just theory, it's crucial. It determines if time is your friend or your enemy.
Right, and that's why starting out is often so hard. People hit what the source calls the plateau of latent potential.
The valley of disappointment. I think we've all been there.
Oh, yeah. You put in the effort, make those small changes, but you don't see the big results right away. It feels like it's not working.
And that's super discouraging. You feel like quitting.
Totally. But the key insight here from the source is that the work isn't wasted. It's being stored up, like potential energy.
So even if you can't see it yet, you're building something.
Exactly. The full value only reveals itself later. You break through that plateau eventually if you stick with it.
That's such an important piece of reassurance. You're not spinning your wheels, you're like loading the spring.
Well put. Now, shifting from the what to the how, the author suggests a really important shift in focus, away from just goals.
Right. Drawing on Scott Adams, the distinction between goals and systems. Goals are the results, systems are the processes.
And the argument is, focus on the system. The process is what you actually do. Focusing solely on the goal can be less effective.
So instead of, I want to lose 30 pounds, focus on, my system is, I walk for 30 minutes every day and track my calories.
Precisely. The system is the repeatable action. And designing good systems comes down to understanding the basic structure of a habit. The 4 steps.
This is that core feedback loop, right? Try, fail, learn, try differently. It's how we learn anything, really.
And habits are just the brain's way of automating solutions to problems we face over and over. Jason Riha's quote in the source nails it. Reliable solutions to recurring problems.
And the brain actually gets more efficient. Less activity.
Yeah, as it becomes automatic, brain activity decreases for that task. It's autopilot. The source breaks this whole loop down into 4 steps.
Okay, what are they?
Step 1, the cue, the trigger, the bit of info that predicts a reward is coming.
Like smelling the bakery, or maybe feeling stressed, could be internal or external.
Exactly. It signals an opportunity. That cue leads to step 2, the craving.
The motivation, the desire.
Yeah, but it's subtle. You don't crave the donut itself. You crave the change in state. It promises the comfort, the sugar hit. You don't crave scrolling. You crave relief from boredom.
So the craving is about changing how you feel. And the source says feelings are what turn a neutral cue into a driving force.
That's key. The feeling predicts the outcome. The craving then powers step 3, the response.
Which is the actual habit. Buying the donut, grabbing the phone.
And finally, step 4, the reward, the payoff.
The bit that satisfies the craving and tells your brain, hey, remember this, do it again.
Exactly. It closes the loop and reinforces the habit. The source connects this to things like operant conditioning, but really emphasizes that craving step and the role of internal states, thoughts, feelings. So it's cue, craving, response, reward.
Got it. And based on that loop, the author gives us the 4 laws of behavior change, tools to build good habits and break bad ones.
Yep. Law number 1, make it obvious.
Makes sense. If the cue isn't obvious, the habit doesn't start. And cues often fade into the background, right? The snacks on the counter, the phone.
Totally. They become invisible. So awareness is the first step. You need to see the cues.
And a powerful strategy here is habit stacking.
Yes, this is brilliant. You piggyback a new habit onto one you already do without fail.
The formula is, after I current habit, I will new habit.
Like, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. Or after I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes.
You're using an existing, reliable trigger. That's clever. The source also mentions the Diderot effect here.
Right, how buying one new thing, like his fancy robe, made him want other fancy things to match. It shows how one cue or action can trigger a whole cascade. The trick with habit stacking is picking the right existing cue that happens at the frequency you need.
Specificity matters.
Yeah.
Okay, besides stacking, what else makes cues obvious?
Environment design. This is huge.
The idea that motivation is overrated.
Often, yeah. Your environment shapes your behavior more than you think. The study in the Massachusetts General Hospital cafeteria is just a perfect example.
They wanted people to drink more water, less soda, but without lecturing them.
Exactly. So they didn't try to change minds. They changed the layout, put water everywhere, made it the easy, obvious choice.
And water sales went up, soda sales went down, just by changing the choice architecture.
Powerful, isn't it? It shows we should think about our spaces in terms of relationships. How do you interact with your couch? Is it for reading or for TV and snacks? The context triggers the habit.
So you can intentionally design that. The source suggests things like redesigning your space, or the one space, one use idea.
Dedicate a chair just for reading, a desk just for work. Avoid mixing contexts. The author even talks about getting a separate office to create that clear work-life boundary.
And this works in reverse for breaking bad habits too, right? The Vietnam War heroin addiction example is stark.
Incredibly stark. Soldiers who were addicted in Vietnam, many of them just stopped almost immediately upon returning home.
Because the environment changed completely. The cues, the stress, the peers, the availability were gone.
The triggers vanished. It shows just how context-dependent habits can be.
But there's a caution there too about cues backfiring.
Yeah. Sometimes trying to highlight a bad habit cue, like shaming smokers with lung pictures, can actually increase stress.
Which might be the very cue that triggers the smoking habit for some people.
Exactly. Bad habits can be autocatalytic. They feed themselves. You need to be mindful.
Okay, so law 1, make it obvious. What's law 2?
Make it attractive. The more appealing a habit is, the more likely you are to stick with it. Make it irresistible.
And this taps into dopamine.
Big time. The dopamine-driven feedback loop. And the key insight from the source is that dopamine spikes most in anticipation of a reward, not just when you get it.
This is the wanting, the craving that's fueled by dopamine.
That's precisely. That Olds and Milner rat experiment is wild blocking dopamine made rats lose the will to live, essentially. Died of thirst next to water. It shows dopamine drives motivation, desire, not just pleasure.
And things like drugs, junk food, social media, they hijack this system with intense anticipation.
They do. They're highly dopamine-driven. But so are basic needs. The source also brings up supernormal stimuli.
Like exaggerated versions of reality, the goose preferring a volleyball to its own egg.
Yeah, because it's a bigger, more stimulating version of the egg cue. Humans fall for this too. Junk food is more stimulating than natural food. Social media offers exaggerated novelty.
So how do we make good habits more attractive?
Temptation bundling is a great technique mentioned. You pair something you want to do with something you need to do.
Like, I can only watch my favorite Netflix show while I'm on the treadmill.
Exactly. Or the ABC TGIT example, pairing their Thursday shows, The Need, with relaxing, wine, popcorn, The Want. It links the desired activity with an enjoyable experience.
Makes the need feel more like a treat. What else makes habits attractive?
Social influence. It's huge. We are wired to fit in. Behaviors are attractive if they help us belong.
So we imitate people around us, the close, the many, the powerful.
Absolutely. Think about picking up habits from family, friends, colleagues, or how trends spread. The study about partners influencing each other's weight loss.
Yeah, that makes sense. If everyone around you is doing something, it feels like the normal, attractive thing to do.
Which is why joining a culture where your desired behavior is the norm is so effective. Like the MIT robotics class where becoming an astronaut seemed, well, almost normal for that group. You absorb the tribe's identity.
And finally, under attractive, the source talks about reframing your mindset.
Yeah, changing how you feel about the habit or its cues.
Like seeing distractions in meditation, not as failures, but as opportunities to practice returning focus.
Exactly. Or reframing pre-game jitters from nervous to excited, seeing the adrenaline is helpful. It shifts your emotional response, making the activity more appealing or less daunting.
And this links back to cravings being about deeper motives, right? Like wanting connection or status.
Mm-hmm. Social media isn't just about novelty, it taps into wanting acceptance, avoiding FOMO. Understanding the underlying motive helps you see why it's so attractive. And remember, emotion often precedes reason. We feel first, then rationalize.
Okay, law 3, make it easy.
Yes. And here, the source highlights a key difference. Being in motion versus taking action.
Motion is planning, researching, strategizing.
Stuff that feels productive but doesn't actually produce the result. Action is doing the thing, executing.
Voltaire's the best is the enemy of the good. We get stuck in motion sometimes to avoid maybe failing.
Could be. But the core of habit formation is repetition. Getting your reps in, making it automatic.
So frequency matters more than how long you've been doing it.
That's what the research suggests. It's not about 21 days or 300 days necessarily. It's about the rate at which you perform the habit. Each repetition strengthens the neural pathway long-term potentiation.
Like building muscle memory in the brain. The London taxi driver study, with their larger hippocampi from navigating complex routes.
Exactly. Practice literally reshapes the brain. And once a habit is automatic, you can do it even with very low motivation.
So the goal is to make good habits so easy, you'll do them even when you don't feel like it. Reduce the friction.
Precisely. Habits are often obstacles between you and the desired outcome. More friction means less likely you'll do it. Think of that bent garden hose, straighten it out, reduce the friction, and the water flows easily.
Start habits in low-friction environments, like the Japanese manufacturers focusing on eliminating tiny inefficiencies.
Yes, addition by subtraction, making things smoother, easier. Convenient products are habit-forming for this reason. Low friction, Netflix autoplay. It's easier to watch than not to watch.
And you flip this for bad habits. Increase friction.
Make them harder to do. Take the batteries out of the remote. Leave your phone in another room until lunch. That little bit of extra effort can make all the difference.
And the 2-minute rule is designed specifically to lower friction for starting good habits.
It's brilliant for that. Scale any new habit down so the very first step takes 2 minutes or less.
Read 1 page. Put on my running shoes. Do 1 push-up.
Exactly. It's about making starting ridiculously easy. It's a gateway habit. Once you've started, it's much easier to continue. You can scale up later using habit shaping.
Better to do less than you hoped than nothing at all. That's powerful.
It really is.
Okay, the final law. Law 4. Make it satisfying.
This taps into a fundamental principle. We repeat things that feel good. Thorndike's law of effect. Behavior followed by satisfying consequences gets repeated.
But the challenge is that immediate versus delayed reward thing again.
Right. Our brains evolved to prioritize immediate survival, immediate gratification. Present you wants the reward now.
Bad habits often give that instant hit. Smoking eases stress now. Junk food tastes good now. Good habits exercise. Saving the rewards are way off in the future.
And the consequences of bad habits are often delayed too, which makes them easier to ignore in the moment.
So how do we make good habits satisfying now?
You need to inject some form of immediate success or satisfaction while the long-term rewards accumulate.
Like the savings account examples. Labeling an account for something specific you want, like a trip or a jacket.
Exactly. Every time you skip that impulse buy or resist the bad habit, you transfer the money over. You see the progress immediately. It makes not doing something feel rewarding.
That's clever. Turning inaction into a satisfying action. And the source says the reward should reinforce your identity.
Yeah, ideally. If your goal is health, rewarding yourself with a massage fits. Rewarding yourself with a giant pizza, maybe not so much. It creates conflict.
What about habit tracking? How does that make things satisfying?
Several ways. First, it's an obvious cue. Second, seeing the streak grow is motivating. You don't want to break the chain. Third, the simple act of checking off the box or marking the X feels good. It provides immediate positive feedback.
And keeps the focus on the process, on showing up.
Which brings us to the principle, never miss twice.
Because everyone messes up sometimes.
Everyone. Perfection isn't the goal, but successful people get back on track quickly. Don't let one missed day snowball. Avoid that all-or-nothing thinking.
Showing up even badly on the next day is crucial.
Incredibly valuable. Just keep the momentum. But there's a potential downside to tracking. Goodhart's law, right? When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Don't get so obsessed with a streak that you forget why you're doing the habit. Don't optimize for the metric at the expense of the real goal.
Keep perspective. And finally, to make bad habits unsatisfying.
Make them immediately painful or costly. An accountability partner or a habit contract works well here.
Like the Sam Harris example, real consequences. Like paying money or public embarrassment for missing targets.
Exactly. Attaching immediate, unpleasant consequences makes the bad habit much less appealing in the moment.
Okay, those are the 4 laws. But the source goes beyond that, looking at long-term success. Like finding the right game to play.
Yeah, finding a game where the odds are in your favor. Aligning your habits with your natural talents or inclinations.
Because if something feels easier or more enjoyable for you than for others, you're more likely to stick with it.
Exactly. It creates a virtuous cycle. Genes aren't destiny, but they can point you towards areas where your effort will likely yield better results. The source has good questions to ask yourself.
Like, what feels like fun to you but work to others? Where do you lose track of time? What comes naturally?
Exploring those can help you find your sweet spot, where building habits feels less like a grind.
But even in your sweet spot, there's another big threat: boredom.
Oh, this is so important. Mastery requires endless repetition, and repetition eventually gets boring.
The excitement fades. The novelty wears off.
Yep. And that's often where people fall off. But the insight is successful people feel the boredom too. They just push through it. They show up anyway.
The weightlifting coach, quote, "Success comes down to handling the boredom of training."
It's about professionalism. Sticking to the schedule even when you don't feel like it. Amateurs follow their mood. Pros follow the plan. You have to fall in love with boredom, in a way.
That's a tough one, but crucial. And connected to sticking with it is reflection and review.
Absolutely. You can't improve if you're not aware of how you're doing. Reflection makes you notice mistakes and allows for course correction.
Like athletes reviewing game film or writers revising drafts. The source mentions top performers doing this consistently. Kipchoge's training notes, Ledecky's tracking, Chris Rock reviewing jokes.
And the author's own annual review process tallying habits, reflecting on progress. It keeps you honest and helps refine your system.
But there's a potential dark side even to good habits. The downside of identity.
Yeah. While building an identity around your habits helps initially, I am a runner, I am a writer, holding on to that identity too rigidly can be a problem.
How so?
It can lead to pride, denying weaknesses, resisting change even when it's needed. The more an idea is tied to your identity, the harder it is to challenge it or adapt.
Interesting point. Okay, and one final reinforcement from the source, emotion before reason.
Yes, tying back to craving. Our feelings, our emotions, they're the primary drivers. The craving hits first, then the response. System 1, feeling, leads System 2, thinking. We often rationalize decisions after we've already been moved emotionally.
Understanding that is key to making habits attractive and satisfying, right?
Yeah.
Appealing to feelings.
Definitely. It helps explain why logic alone often isn't enough to change behavior.
Wow, okay. This framework is incredibly comprehensive. And the source notes it applies broadly business parenting.
Yeah, the principles for shaping human behavior are pretty universal. Better systems lead to better outcomes almost anywhere.
This has been a fantastic deep dive. The core message really lands those small, consistent atomic habits. They build incredible momentum over time, even if you can't see it at first.
Absolutely. And having the 4 laws make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying gives you, the listener, a really practical framework, a toolkit for designing better habits and dismantling the ones holding you back.
Thank you so much for walking us through these sources. Really insightful.
My pleasure. It's powerful stuff.
And we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on, something based on everything we've discussed.
If cravings, as the source suggests, are really just specific attempts to satisfy deeper, fundamental human motives, things like connection, status, certainty, belonging,
Then what underlying need, what core human desire are your most persistent habits, both the good ones and the challenging ones, truly trying to fulfill? Something to think about.